actually 10, 15 minutes ago. And prior to that, though, we had some big Blazers news. Enes Kanter is coming back to Portland. We're going to talk about that. We're going to preview the guys we want to see the Trailblazers go after. We're also going to talk about their second-round draft pick, CJ Elleby, who was drafted on Wednesday night with the 46th pick. But first, the big news of today, the Blazers are going way back in time, a whole year, to get a brief blast from the past. And Enes Kanter in a trade today, a three-way deal with Memphis. The Blazers will give up Mario Hezonja in that deal. He just picked up his player option for about $1.9 million earlier in the week. Joe, you covered Enes when he was here at the end of 2019. They acquired him in a trade, or actually they picked him up as a free agent after the Knicks had cut him. They brought him in to back up Jusuf Nurkic. Nurkic got injured in March, broke his leg. Kanter took over the starting job at center and helped the team get to the West Finals. You know this man way better than I do. What was his impact then? What do you think his impact is going to be now?
I think he's going to have a solid impact. I think it was a solid move by Neil Olshey. It's someone the Blazers obviously know all too well. They know exactly the type of player and person they're getting. This is actually the third time the Blazers and Olshey have either signed or pursued or traded for Enes Kanter. They, of course, signed him to an offer sheet for his mammoth deal with Oklahoma City Thunder that the Thunder ultimately matched. So
they were trying to steal him.
Yeah. So this is not the first time the Blazers have flirted with Enes Kanter, but he was immeasurably important in the Blazers' playoff run that year to the Western Conference Finals. Came out emphatically in Game 1 against the Thunder, and then was hugely important against Denver. CJ got a lot of credit in Game 7. Enes was very important in that, and very important throughout the series, all while fasting for Ramadan. It was a pretty impressive and gritty performance by a guy, sacrificing a lot to play. So I don't think he's a mystery to Blazers fans. Outstanding offensive rebounder, outstanding low post scorer, a really, really nice bench piece, a nice big man off the bench. I think looking beyond, everybody knows what he is as a player, looking chess piece or chess game match. I can't talk. Looking at the chessboard moving forward, I think this definitely signals the end of Hassan Whiteside's reign. Not that we are surprised by that, but you would imagine that's the case. It kind of makes you wonder about Zach Collins and what's going on with him. But, so far, an outstanding offseason by Neil Olshey, who trades for Robert Covington, perfect player, perfect need, perfect time, and now bringing in a backup big that they're familiar with, that they know what they're getting. And very briefly, we saw that Enes and Jusuf Nurkic can play together. I distinctly remember being in Brooklyn, New York, watching them. I don't remember if it was Enes's. I believe it was Enes's first game, but it was one of his first couple games. Had a really nice run, and they had a really nice run together. So, the Blazers are, in some regards, have in recent years tried to buck the trend by going big, and at least have the option to go big. And now they certainly have that in spades with these two guys, Jusuf and Enes.
Now, in 23 games that year with the Blazers, he averaged 13 points and 8.6 rebounds per game in just 22 minutes. In the playoffs, though, he was pretty solid throughout until the West Finals. He kind of only averaged like 7.7 rebounds. Do you remember what happened in that series?
Well, playing, the team they played, they didn't need him. It was more of a small ball kind of a game. So
yeah, his minutes did go down a bit.
Yeah, right. So it was more of a matchups kind of a thing than anything. But again, not only is this a guy who can score, who can rebound, he's a guy with lots of experience, lots of playoff experience, and he can start in a pinch, which we saw during that run. Now, more than anything, this also gives the Blazers the ability to ease some of the load off Jusuf Nurkic. I mean, we saw the toll he took in Orlando in the NBA bubble, and my man got gassed, near the end there, and coming back from everything he came back from, it was an incredibly impressive and admirable performance, but he needs some help, and he got some help now.
Yeah, it's always seemed like they don't want to play him 35, 38 minutes. They want to play him right around 30, 31, 32, it seems like, and Enes will allow them to do that. Plus, it seems like it takes some pressure off of Collins from having to play some center. Now I know Whiteside's been there, but if Whiteside were to be gone, you bring in Kanter, that takes some pressure off of Collins, we don't know where he's going to be in terms of he's going to be the starting four. I imagine he will unless they bring someone else in, but he's also a backup center. Do you see Collins being the third center or just exclusively being a power forward?
I think
or
he's
both.
He's both for sure.
Yeah.
And, there's a school of thought in Blazers land that he is a center and not a four. And so it'll be interesting to see how they do deploy him. And also I don't want to speculate too much, but does this say anything about the health of his ankle? Does this offer a tease at where he is, in his progression from that ankle injury? We haven't talked to Zach since the bubble, since he was hurt. And so we don't know where he is in his rehab and how far along he is, how close he is to returning to the court. So until we have access to Neil Olshey, we can't say that definitively. But again, for a team that's in win now mode, they got themselves a rebounding, scoring veteran big man with playoff experience that they know well, that has a proven track record here. So not a guy that breaks the bank, but a guy that helps get you closer to where you want to be in a really nice piece. Exactly.
Okay, before we move on to our personal targets, guys that we would like to see the Blazers get for one reason or another, let's remind everyone that this salary slot, $5 million, will go into the trade exception, which they had, which was 7.1. So that means they still have 2.1 remaining if they want to make another deal and absorb some of that into there, as far as my understanding of that. And that also gets them up to the cap, because as my calculations, they were $5 or $6 million below the cap. You have to be at or over the cap in order to qualify to have your mid-level and your biannual exceptions, which this should put you right at about the cap, $109 million on your payroll, which gives them a chance now to spend about $9 million in the first year of a contract, or split that mid-level exception as many times as they want. But conceivably, they can go out the next couple of days and get a 4-year, $40 million player. And then they also have the biannual exception, which I believe starts at around $3.6 million.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily know or expect the Blazers to go out and sign anyone to a 4-year deal. I think when they're looking to add pieces, they're looking more, a two-year run, 3-year max maybe, or 2 with an option. First of all, that is much more common currently in the NBA, with guys wanting more flexibility, teams wanting more flexibility. You wonder about the effects of the coronavirus on the cap and all that, how that will impact guys wanting to do long-term deals, but also just the trajectory of this franchise. They're in a win now mode, but you don't want to tie yourself, saddle yourself with too many long-term deals. And obviously they have a lot of money invested in Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum. And so,
and those things are going to blow up too.
Right. And so, and one thing that, and I know Neil is a lot of people are hit and miss on him, but he has, and for all his spending that he has done, a lot of the deals were either eventually tradable or a lot on shorter term deals, especially more recently. So, keep that in mind when we do talk about some of the guys that we like, that we think they should pursue. At least from my perspective, I think a 2-year deal would be perfect for some of these guys.
Okay. Moving on.
Is that Mike here?
We're working on our transitions like a relay team. We're trying to. Anyway, go
ahead. It's the off season for all of us, except for it's not the off season. It's supposed to be
our first season.
I think that before we go too deep into our free agent kind of targets, if you will, or options for this team, we'd be remiss if we didn't briefly go over the Blazers draft. And obviously it became a lot less interesting since they traded their pick for Robert Covington, but they did make a move drafting 2nd round pick CJ Elleby. Is that right?
That's correct.
Mr. Pac-12. So, he's a guy, and I don't know a lot about him. I'm pretty honest with Blazers fans over the years that I don't pay much attention to college basketball. So by no means am I an expert. But a 6'6" guy, averaged 18.5 points, which was 4th in the Pac-12, almost 8 rebounds a game. And he seemed to shoot pretty well too. Decently, 34% from deep. And I believe he overhauled his shot. I think I saw a tidbit on that after getting some kind of feedback. So he's a guy kind of a work in progress, as all second round picks are. But perhaps you could enlighten us more about CJ.
Yeah,
The Blazers' second CJ.
Right. Yeah. It's a solid pick, I think. I mean, he's a guy who can do a little bit of everything. He's got some height at 6'6", obviously. He's got some athleticism. He's not an elite athlete, but he definitely has athleticism. He plays hard. He's described as a gym rat. He's always working on his game. His shot has been a work in progress. He shot 41% from three-point range as a freshman, and then last year only shot about 34%, so it did come down. He said that's because he was told by NBA scouts he needs to adjust his shot, get it tighter, crisper. So he worked on that, and he believes that caused him to be off a little bit. But at the same time, it raised, he believed, his free throw percentage from about 66 to 81. I talked to Enes Kanter, the former Oregon coach who used to coach at Washington State and recruited Elleby to Washington State and coached him for 1 year. And he said also he coached him the first year, and then the second year watched some of the games, and said also that second year he became more of the focal point of opposing defenses, a little bit more pressure on him. Plus he was altering his shot. That may have played a factor into it. But as he pointed out, I went and looked at his game log. He did get better as the season went along. He had a 6 for 10 night late in the season from three-point range, and some other good nights as well. So I think that's something that's coming along. But he even mentioned himself that Portland does a great job of developing its second-round picks, and which you've talked about numerous times. And so if Neil Olshey identifies this guy and believes he has the goods to develop, then I think at the very least he's going to make the team. We'll sort of see where he goes from there. One other thing about him, defensively, again, if he were an elite athlete, he'd have gone, in the first round, given his other skills. But he's athletic enough, and he works hard enough, and he's tenacious enough, and aggressive enough, and competitive enough to keep improving in that area. So I think this is a promising pick for Portland to develop.
All right, real quick, former Blazer Mason Plumlee, according to our good friend Adrian Wojnarowski, has agreed to a 3-year deal with the Pistons. So little former Blazers guy going east there.
Okay. All right, so we've talked about the second-round pick, and we've set the salary cap situation for you guys. And so now, what can they do with all this cash? Well, let's get to our list. Now, I saw your list last night before I published my list, and so your list was very, very I felt it was very adult, very mature, very it made sense. And so I thought I'd go a little bit differently with mine and have a little bit of a few little fantasy projects. But let's start with one of yours first, and that is a Crowder. Tell us about why you think they should go after Jay Crowder.
Well, first of all, if he's interested in coming to Portland, and again, I should preface all this by, these are people, and the way I approached this, Aaron, was more of a quote unquote realistic target in most cases, not all cases. Some of it was fit also, but a guy who's available, a guy who would fit, who would agree to some of the salary restraints the Blazers have. They only have the 2 vehicles, the mid-level exception and the biannual exception. So you're not going for a max guy or anything like that. And more importantly, just need and fit right now. But in my dream world, if I'm the Blazers GM, especially what they've done so far, I just think Jay Crowder would be another home run signing. He's a 6'6" forward who could play both spots. Decent 3-point shooter, strong on-ball defender, just a beast, a rugged beast. Averaged 10.5, 6 points, 6 rebounds, a little under 3 assists. Shot 34% from deep last year with Memphis and Miami, and then really elevated his game in the playoffs as part of the Heat's march to the NBA Finals. Shot 40% from 3-point range. Fits perfectly with the Blazers, trajectory. He's 30 years old, so he fits with Dame and CJ and Covington and everything they have going on right now on their timeline. He's also played in 51 playoff games, including that run last year. So a guy with experience, a guy that it would accentuate their roster. And in an offseason where, I think the signing of Covington signals that the Blazers are finally looking to add a little bit of defense. This guy would certainly accentuate that and fit that bill. And boy, the combination of him and Covington together would surely, it would be a tough out for other teams. And you look at where the Blazers are with their offense, to add those 2 defensive pieces to the mix, it would be pretty strong.
Now, if they did that, then when they play those 2 together, more than likely Crowder would be the 3 and Covington the 4. Or do you see Crowder? Because obviously CJ's at the 2, right? So then it almost seems I think it's a good signing. I think it would fit perfectly. I just wonder if it's also a little bit redundant.
Well, one thing to keep in mind, the way Terry Stotts plays, and this has been the case for a while, his 3 and 4 are pretty interchangeable in his system. And we saw that with Al-Farouq Aminu and Mo Harkless for 3+ years. So
Right.
I wouldn't get too, focused on
Position
that.
happy.
Yeah, and especially, each year that, again, you go back to when I first started in this racket of the NBA back in the Greg Oden draft of 2007, it was a knock on a guy to be a combo anything. And even as recent as CJ McCollum, he faced a lot of questions in the draft about whether he was a point guard or a shooting guard, and was he big enough, and so, and it was a point of contention for him. He had heard it so much. Well, this is a positionless league right now. I mean, as we talked about on the last on the last whatever we're calling these video casts. What are we going to call these?
Web shows. Extravaganza.
Yeah. With Covington, as you mentioned, he played some center last year. So we're talking about a 3-4-5 with him. And so, man, you just want to add guys to the mix to give Terry Stotts options. And so
just give him some dudes, some dogs.
Yes, especially
some grown men beasts who are going to play D.
Yes, exactly. So, I mean, that's kind of how I looked at that. And I just think fit and what they're looking for, he'd be a great addition. Now, maybe he wants to stay in Miami. A lot of people don't want to leave South Beach. I can appreciate that. Maybe he's got other suitors for more money, maybe more years. You don't know. And those are the kinds of things that again, I want to preface everything we say. This is just us offering, what we think we might do or what we think would fit. Neil Olshey knows what Neil Olshey is going to do, and pretty much no one else does right now.
Yeah. Oh, Woj does. Anyway. Okay. So my first choice, and this is an adult choice, falls in that category, would be Paul Millsap, because he can play the 4. And I think you and I are in agreement with Zach. Like, there's the potential there. They like him, but he hasn't really proven that he can be the guy. You get someone like Millsap who's old enough to where he's not going to eat up all the minutes, but he plays solid defense. He can still shoot it. He's a veteran. He knows what he's doing. He gets after it, which is what you want. So I would like him to be the sort of put Collins in a position where you're either going to back this guy up or you're going to beat him out. If you beat him out, that means you've progressed and come a long way and you're ready. If you can't beat him out, that's fine. You're still going to get 20 minutes off the bench, but Millsap as a starter. And then, of course, we might see some Kanter at power forward. We might see some Covington at power forward. What do you think about Millsap as an option? Or is he too old?
I mean, he's a fine option. He's not.
He's a fine option.
It doesn't. I don't have a problem with it. I would be fine with the addition. I like what he brings. He's been a nice piece for Denver. I do think when you're talking about the slope of a career, he's coming down this way. Boy, talk about previous Blazers targets. This was a guy that Kevin Pritchard signed to an offer sheet back in medieval times. So, I mean, he would be a nice piece.
And didn't Portland go after him in 2016? Am I remembering that correctly?
Maybe.
Wasn't there? No.
I can't remember. I can remember things 10 years ago, but my short-term memory not so good.
Because you have small kids, that's why.
Yeah, who keep me up. Man, we are going through some sleep issues right now. I tell you what. I'm glad it's dark in here because the bag's under my eyes. No, I would be fine with Millsap. I think it'd be a good sighting. He wasn't a guy that was on my radar. He's versatile, but not as versatile, certainly as Crowder.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So who's up?
Yeah. So now, I mean, I guess pressing along here, or wait, I guess I should have transitioned you there to Millsap. Now you're supposed to transition me to. I'll just transition myself to Mr. Jeremy Grant. Now, Jeremy Grant's apparently we really want them to acquire some Denver Nuggets players.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it just shows how good Tim Connolly's done as a GM in recent years. But son of a former player, obviously, an athletic and versatile forward who, again, would shore up the Blazers' defense, provides pretty good shooting. I think he shot 39% from three-point range last season, is familiar playing alongside stars, filling a role, obviously playing alongside Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic. So that would be important. Now, this is more of I can't believe how many times I've been called an adult today. My wife would strongly disagree with all of you calling me an adult, but this is more of my little kid wish here because I believe the market's going to price him out of the Blazers range, if not in money, if money and years or years. So this is more of like it would
he
be a nice
fit perfectly, but not out of the realm of possibility, but probably not going to happen.
Yeah. So you never know. But I mean, in fit and everything, and some of this too the kind of guy or the kind of player that would be a perfect addition for the team. And so someone like him who versatile on defense, can play solid lockdown defense, and give shooting. Boom. Now I should say, and we talked about this, after talking about the Covington addition, I still think the Blazers need an on-ball defender, and Covington is solid, but he's really advanced in team defense and switching and filling the role, and that's going to be beautiful pairing with Yusuf Nurkic and perhaps Zach Collins. We'll see there, but and so I think one more on-ball defender would, or an on-ball defender would really, boy, it would be a home run for this team.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there. It seems like that Neil O'Shea will kick the tires on that one, but like you said, he might be priced out.
Yeah, so now I'm going to go ahead and talk about being an adult. I'm going to transition us into you kind of have a pie in the sky, and I don't know if we're going more kid or more adult here, but Josh Jackson seems to be a guy that little kid Aaron Fentress wants.
So I had two little kid picks on my list. One was Brian Giles, the center for the Kings, actually drafted by the Blazers, but then
Dr. Knee Pain.
Exactly. Man, he is so he's okay. I don't think it's going to happen. Obviously, it's not going to happen now because of Enes. So I'm only mentioning this now because they already got their backup center. But he's so athletic. He's so gifted. He would have been a top 5 pick had he not blown out his knees, at Duke. So I kind of thought, hey, take a run on that guy. And if you watch his highlights, man, he's still got some skills. So we'll see where he ends up. So that's not going to happen. But I think Josh Jackson, a former number 4 pick just a few years ago, who hasn't done well in Phoenix or Memphis, but he's so athletic. And he's still so talented that if you can get him on the cheap, why wouldn't you bring him in as a backup small forward? Last year averaged 9 points, 3 rebounds in only 17 minutes for Memphis. He shot 44%, which isn't awful. Shot 32 from 3, which isn't great, but not pitiful. I could totally see a situation where Neil O'Shea in the past, who has gone after guys like that. Hazonia was a 5th pick. Harkless was 15th. I think Noah Vonleh was 9th. So he's gone after guys like that to see if he can, reclamate them. I could see Josh Jackson as a legitimate, backup small forward. What say you?
Yeah. I'll give you the.
You can't even entertain it. You can't even humor me for 2 minutes.
I mean, that's gotta keep it real. I will say that it does fit the bill with Neil O'Shea's track record. Is that when he's basement, shopping, and he's. Is it basement bin, basement bargain? I don't know.
Popping tags, bro. It's popping tags.
Okay, there you go. When he's popping tags, he does look for those guys like a Maurice Harkless or a Shabazz Napier, guys who are kind of haven't panned out, but still had a lot to offer at some point, were highly thought of at one point. They don't all pan out, Mario Hazonia, but many of them have for the Blazers in recent seasons. And so he does fit that bill. And there's a guy that I have on my list who I totally stole from someone else, one of our colleagues. I thought it was a great idea. So we'll get to that later. But, I see where you're going with that.
Okay. Well, I appreciate I see where you're going at least. Okay. you are enamored, though, with a Justin Holiday. Why? He's been around the league a lot.
Ultimate grown-up pick right here, the ultimate adult pick. And what I did is I wanted to be more realistic with guys I thought, for price-wise, for fit-wise, and so on and so forth, that they could actually get. Right. And I thought Justin Holiday would be a nice piece. And he's a guy who's going to play 10, 15 minutes. He's not a guy who's going to see crazy minutes. But he's a guy they have a history with. It was actually Neil O'Shea who saved his career, kind of plucked him off waivers after he was, I believe it was the, I'm spacing on the team that cut him, but plucked him off waivers in 2012 during training camp, designated him to the D League back when the Blazers had the Idaho Stampede and were affiliated with them. Had a really nice season, so much so that the 76ers signed him later that year. He's been in the league ever since. And really quietly had a really nice season last year for the Indiana Pacers. Averaged 8.5 points, 3 rebounds, and a steal, and played both forward positions. Can shoot the 3. I think he's
shot 40 last year. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, in a lot of ways, it makes a lot of sense. Now, it's not going to be a sexy signing, and I imagine it would induce a lot of eye rolls by the Blazers. And certainly not your 1A, 1B signing, but a guy that I think would be a great addition that could certainly fill out your roster. So just, kind of one of those, keep him on your radar. It would be a nice fit, sort of a move.
Yeah, he played for the Bulls for a while, so I got to watch him play a lot. He's high energy, and when he's on, he is on. But when he's off, get him off the floor. So I mean, that could be the perfect guy as a backup. He could play the 2 or the 3, or like you said, the 4. He's a versatile guy. So yeah, I could definitely see that being a possibility.
Okay, now moving on is one of your apparently are these all Bulls related? Is this how this works?
I only have you're the one who has 2 Bulls, ex-Bulls. I only have 1 ex-Bull.
Okay, fine. Bobby Portis is up next. He's a target.
Yeah. So I think, to me, this is no brainer. Like, if they can get him, I would totally get Bobby Portis, because off the bench he will be instant offense at the 4, because that guy can fill it up. Shot 45% last year, shot 36 from 3, 40% from 3 the year before, career 36. He shot 37 before. He's used to coming off the bench. Last year, 10.5 rebounds a game in 21 minutes. You're telling me if I can bring this guy off the bench for 15, 20 minutes, he's going to give me 8 to 10 points and 4 or 5 rebounds. He runs the break. He shoots really well in transition. He's really good at coming in a break and getting the ball, kick out on the 3 and nailing the 3. He's a high energy guy who I think the Blazers fans would love. It trips me out with him and Holiday, as it just tells you how tough the NBA is to break in terms of being a starter and a star. Those are 2 pretty talented players. Holiday, I think, has been on 6 teams already. Portis has already been on 3. This will be his 4th team if he changes from the Knicks. But I think they're both great bench guys. I would love to see them get Bobby Portis. 6'10", I think. Yeah, 6'10", 250.
How's that defense?
Defense is so-so. But, again, if he's coming off the bench, he's going against bench guys, hopefully, and he's going to fill it up and make up for it. So I like him.
All right. Fair enough.
Right. Now wait, let me check your list. Oh, okay. Yeah, you're talking about the Bulls. You're of the mind, and I agree with you to a certain extent, that they need a backup point guard, a veteran backup point guard. Who was your selection for that role?
Well, and I have to credit John Hollinger with this. He kind of planted this seed, and it makes a lot of sense in a lot of ways. But I was thinking Chris Dunn, former number 5 pick, who just simply has not panned out. The ultimate Neil Olshey reclamation project. Again, Al-Farouq Aminu, Mo Harkless, Shabazz Napier. We're going to stop mentioning these guys at some point, but guys that have gotten in the system through their player development that they think so highly of, and developed into solid rotation pieces, if not starters in the league. And I think ultimately and clearly Chris Dunn is at a crossroads in his career based upon where he was drafted and where he's where he's landed, but not a good shooter. So let's get that out of the way.
26% from 3 last year.
Yeah, 29, but the same difference. But a really tenacious defender, a solid on-ball defender, gets a lot of steals, which Robert Covington does too. Now, Terry Stotts firmly believes in a very conservative defensive approach, funneling guys to area on the floor and not gambling a lot with a lot of, pursuing steals and stuff like that. Now, if his personnel was different, maybe he would mix it up a little more. If you have Covington and then you add Chris Dunn to the mix, maybe that would give him kind of a different, philosophy to consider there. But, when you're looking at a guy who's only going to play sparingly to kind of create and facilitate as a backup point guard, you could do a lot worse than Chris Dunn.
Oh, yeah.
And I should say that, when I laid out the guys that I think they should pursue, one of the guys on the list was Nerlens Noel, who is my ultimate dream Blazers, because he is a Blazer killer. He would add an incredible dimension off the bench. That obviously is thrown out the window with the signing of Enes Kanter. By the way, I should also note that it is Enes Kanter. I'll save you from getting scolded by Terry Stotts. He's very finicky about that. Enes. Yeah.
Okay.
There you go. You got you. So there are many guys, and I'm talking, very minimum signing guys, Austin Rivers-esque. I don't want to say JJ Barea, because that might be a little too low on the totem pole, but guys like that who can come in and take pressure off Dame and CJ. I just think, and maybe it's not your top priority, but I just really believe in it was just exposed so much in the loss to the Lakers in the first round, is that when teams decide to take Damian Lillard away, if they're equipped to do so, and then they throw pressure at CJ McCollum, and you're staggering those guys, and you can take the Blazers out of everything they want to do, and there's no one there to take that pressure off, it just stalls everything for this team. It was the single reason that that Neil Olshey signed Evan Turner years ago to that deal was to bring in another facilitator and creator to take pressure off those guys. And, Evan didn't totally work out, although he was huge in that Denver series 2 years ago. But a guy that can come in and take pressure off them is really on my list of wants for this team. And I think they really need it.
So then if they do that, though, what does that mean for Simons?
And that's a great question, Fentress. And a lot, if they don't do that, then that speaks volumes about where they think Anfernee is, that they really truly believe he's ready to fill that role. Now, they hoped that he would be able to fill that role last year, and he was not ready. Maybe he is now after a year developing and a year taking his lumps, but he wasn't ready in the bubble because he didn't play, hardly at all. So I don't know what's changed in 2 months that would lead them to think that he was it been 2 months, however long it's been.
Yeah, 2 or 3 months.
Yeah. So, and I should make it clear that I am extremely high on Anfernee. I love him as a player. He's a great kid. He fits the Blazers, and he is going to be the guy or a guy, one of their guys sooner than later. I just don't know if it's now. And so maybe it is, and they've made that decision. But if they haven't, this is a route they could go.
So okay, let me run this by you. Because he's going into his 3-year, then there's a 4th-year option, then there's a 5th year, right?
Well, there's a fourth. There's 2 options: the 3rd-year option, the 4th-year option, and then they hold his rights to make him a restricted free agent so long as they tender him a contract, and then they can match any deal beyond that 4th year. So they control the ability to control his rights for the foreseeable future.
Right. So at some point, this push is going to come to shove in terms of what they're going to do with him long term, and for him personally, he's going to get frustrated if he feels like, okay, I got drafted by a team that has a superstar point guard, and their 2 guard can also play some point. There's not many minutes there for me anyway. And, oh, by the way, they don't trust in me yet, and they're going to go get a veteran guy and make me the 3rd-string point guard, actually 4th beyond the times when CJ plays the point. At some point, he and his agent might be like, well, get us out of here. Flip us into something else you need. Do you think it's possible that if they believe Simons is not ready and they go get someone like Dunn or another veteran point guard, that they may look to package Simons with something else to try and upgrade somewhere else?
I'd be really surprised on both fronts. That the Blazers would be looking to trade Anfernee Simons. Never say never, but Neil Olshey, if you had a conversation with Neil last offseason about Anfernee, he believes emphatically in this guy's ability and his potential to be a really, really good player, not just be a solid rotation player, but to be a borderline, if not a star. And so you don't lose your faith in a guy after one trying season when it's his 2nd in the league and you drafted a 19-year-old out of prep school. You have to stay with a guy and stick by him and continue to nurture him. I mean, CJ McCollum is example A, or number 1, or whatever route you want to go in this thing. If the Blazers had given up on him after their 2nd season, where would they be right now? So keep that in mind. And also knowing Anfernee and what a good kid he is and how focused he is on being a better player, I don't think he would run and hide from the way that he played last year or the challenge, both of the things. I think he would own up to that he probably didn't play as well as he hoped he would, or that he knows he can. And I don't think he would run from the challenge of sticking with the team that drafted him. He is very tight with Damian Lillard in this roster. He fits perfectly in with the culture. And he's 21. I mean, we're not talking about a guy who played 3-4 years in college that's now 3-4 years in the league. Like, this was a guy that you knew would take some time to kind of develop. And he's also not a guy that has played a lot of high-level basketball in his career. Unlike Gary Trent, he wasn't on the high-level AAU circuit with an NBA dad who then went to Duke. He's a guy who was the ultimate late bloomer, who switched high schools and switched AAU programs and then went to prep school before he got drafted. So this is they're eyeing the future. They're not going to get lost in the here and now on what that might be. Now, if an all-star player in his prime gets offered up for him, well, business is business. But again, between how highly the Blazers think of him and how well he fits here, I would just be stunned by that.
Yeah, and you mentioned CJ, whose first 2 years played very minimally. I actually remember covering a few games during that stretch and talking to him in the locker room, him being pretty disappointed about his situation. Then third year, boom, he blows up. And the third year for him is different than the third year for Anfernee, this is going to be his third season because CJ played 4 years in college. So it's like a 4-year advancement, really. So CJ in his third year was 4 years ahead of where Simons is in his third year. So it's not equivalent. So yeah, you're right. They do have plenty of time to work things out with him.
Not only that,
Agreed.
for CJ, I mean, the roster blew up, and it's like, here you go, dude. Here's 40 minutes to play a night. It was opportunity met, ability at that point. So it certainly is a different, totally different scenario. Now, one thing that this all raises, and we haven't talked about at all, is the Rodney Hood factor. And I believe that, we've stated how we feel about that. I believe that the Blazers intend to re-sign him. I think when they signed him to that below market deal and he took less money in less years, I think, it's kind of a wink, wink, nod, nod that will reward you later. Right. His injury complicates things, but as a franchise, you want to honor your word. And so I believe the team's going to bring him back. And so you've got to factor in the roster too, when you're talking about 3s and 4s and fits and all that he's another piece we haven't talked about when looking at the free agent additions.
So there's been some news, right, since we've been on. Anthony Davis is a free agent, but that was a given. Has anyone signed? Or not signed, but Goran Dragic has agreed to a 2-year, $37.4 million deal. He's like 60. He's
so good, and he's so good for them. I'm a big Goran Dragic fan. The Blazers were going to pursue him. The old regime was enamored with him during the lockout year right before everything unraveled, and he was going to be a prime free agent target. And then, everything went to, in a handbasket, and roster blew up, and then they drafted Damian Lillard. So count your blessing.
It worked out. No chance that Myers Leonard is coming back. He signed a 2-year, $20 million deal with Miami.
Good for Myers. One of the in the 14, 15 years I've been doing this, one of the best human beings that I've dealt with. A genuine good person who, there's this wall between the media and professional athletes, and that wall has been reinforced even more in recent years, certainly in the time I've done this. He's a guy who always just treated me like a human being and not like a reporter, and happy for him.
Are you saying reporters aren't human beings?
Sometimes not to some people, I should say. Let's put it that way.
That was funny. Okay. Another former Blazer, Wes Matthews. 1 year, $3.6 million for the Lakers. The Lakers added Matthews. And who they just add the other day? My God, I can't remember. They just added someone good the other day too, didn't they, in a trade?
Sure. I mean, there's so much going on right now. I mean, it could be you tell me.
What do you think Wes Matthews has left in him?
I mean, he's definitely in the twilight there, particularly and mostly because of, his Achilles injury. But man, the dude's a winner. The dude plays hard. He knows his role, and he's gonna elevate. Whatever roster he's on and whatever role he has, he's gonna elevate that team. So, I mean, especially for a veteran group like that, like the Lakers, who are chasing another championship and kind of retooling around the margins, I think it's a good signing. And good for him. He's a guy who has a home in L.A. He likes being in L.A. And so I imagine he's pretty happy about that.
Dennis Schrader, that's what they got. They got him in a trade.
There you go.
That's
Schroeder,
right.
yeah.
So they're firming up their backcourt a little bit. Okay, before we sign off here, there doesn't seem to be any news breaking Blazer-wise, right? We don't have any more Woj bombs on the Blazers or anything? We're going to sign off, and they're going to sign like Anthony Davis.
Well, that's the good thing about that is if we do sign off and they make their moves later tonight or whatever, we just come back and do another web special. Yeah, dude, we're in pseudo quarantine. I mean, it's not really 100% quarantine, but where are we gonna go? What are we gonna do?
All right, last thing I do want to ask you. Okay, Klay Thompson. Horrible news for him. 2 years in a row now. He's gonna miss. That definitely hurts the Warriors. They did go out and get Oubre, which is a nice move for them. But that knocks them down a peg. Do you think the addition of Covington and the additions of Covington and Kanter and the loss of Klay Thompson really closes that gap between the Blazers and the Warriors?
Well, sure, it closes the gap to a certain degree. I mean, they just lost an all-star.
And Durant. They lost Durant too. Go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. There's something about the Warriors and Steve Kerr, though. He's going to get that team to play, as good as it possibly can. And let's not mistake, they are still an uber talented team.
Right.
We don't know what the Blazers roster is going to look like in total in 2 days. We don't know what the Warriors roster is going to look like. Same. So, but yeah, of course, that shrinks that gap. I mean, Klay is an integral piece, and he is a fantastic player for that team and in this league. His defense is outstanding. His shooting is clutch, and he can fill it. And even years ago when they were in their dynasty and Steph was getting so much rightful attention, it was often Klay who killed the Blazers in some of those playoff series. Right. I mean, I think the first 2 games, the first time they faced them when they got to the second round, Steph was hurt. He hadn't even come back. So it was Klay who carried the Warriors. So just, you feel bad. He's a good guy from all accounts. All my dealings with him have been, solid. And a guy who spent some time in Lake Oswego, played some little league with Kevin Love. You don't want to burn too many Oregonian bridges there. So it's too bad for him.
Yeah, when I say Durant, obviously Durant was 2 years ago they lost him. But the last time the Blazers played the Warriors in meaningful games in the playoffs, I think Durant missed that series, but he was on that team. So my point being that you got Durant and Klay gone. The Blazers are stronger now, especially with adding Covington. I think Oubre is a nice player, but he's bouncing around the league for a reason. I honestly believe that if the Blazers are healthy with everyone, Nurkic and Covington, et cetera, if they played the Warriors right now, even with Wiseman, who's going to be a rookie, I mean, big deal, he's a rookie. I mean, I think Nurk takes him to school. Even with Curry and Draymond, I think the Blazers win that series. I mean, I truly do. I think that closes the gap tremendously.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, again, I want to see these rosters when it's all said and done, but speculating now, it's in the realm of possibility. Yeah. It's not just the Warriors anymore, though. Of course the landscape of the Western Conference has shifted dramatically, obviously, over the last 2 years. But man, when you look up and down this conference, you got the reigning champ, the Lakers. You got the Clippers. For all their dysfunction, man, they still got a lot of good players. The Denver Nuggets are one of my favorite teams in the league by how they play. They're fun to watch. They're gritty. They're tough. They're talented. Houston's kind of a mess, but who knows what their roster is going to look like in a little bit. Utah Jazz are looming there. The Dallas Mavericks, an underrated bunch when they get Porzingis back. And then you got a couple upstart teams, and the Grizzlies and the Suns now, who have obviously filled out with CP3, have dramatically improved. So, and that doesn't even factor in the Pelicans and everything that they've done, finally solidifying their front office too. Right. I think with stability there is going to be important for them. But the Western Conference is no joke, and it's been brutal for 15 years, and it seems like every year it gets tougher and tougher and tougher.
Right. Okay. That's all I got. You got anything else to say? Any words of wisdom?
I don't think so, man. It's right. I will say this with Neil Olshey, it is always wise to expect the unexpected. Anytime. Do they have Jay Scrub, Aaron Fentress?
They did not get Jay Scrub. They didn't want no scrub. No. They
didn't want no scrub. Now, He was a guy that had been linked to them in pre-draft scuttlebutt, right?
Right.
So did you have Covington on? I mean, in a dream world, yeah, go sign Covington, but you didn't, was he on the radar? Yeah. So it's oftentimes stuff like that that kind of, catches you out of right field. So, some of these guys that we picked that we would like him to sign, who knows if they're on his radar, and who knows really who is right for the taking. But, and it's kind of weird this year too, because, in the past, front offices have had so much time and freedom to game plan for the draft, and then extra time to game plan for free agency. With the pandemic and everything, and the lack of travel and the lack of face-to-face meetings in a lot of cases, it really is interesting to see how quickly signings go and how the landscape plays out. Now, the week-long moratorium has been shrunk to like 42 hours. So
yeah, that's nice.
It'll be sooner than later. Yeah, that is nice. So again, expect the unexpected with Neil Olshey. That's what I've the adage I've learned to follow.
Okay, well, we're going to sign off for now. I want everyone to have a great weekend. Be sure to check OregonLive.com for all of our coverage on the free agent process as it moves this weekend from both Joe and myself. And then sometime next week, when it feels like there's a good spot to come back on here and recap you of a lot of things that have taken place with the Blazers, you'll see us right back here on whatever we're calling the show. We're still working out a name, but we'll just call for now the Portland Trail Blazers Oregonian Free Agency Extravaganza Bonanza Show.
Boom. Sounds good. You guys enjoy
Peace.
the weekend. We'll talk to you later.